So what is your advice to, I guess, both young people and maybe parents who have people who are becoming, young adults? Um, maybe they're not religious or at least not Catholic, not Christian.
Uh-huh.
What do you tell them in terms of, because we kind of argue from our belief system.
Of
We argue
course.
based on what we know to be true,
Yes.
and you're dealing with people of all across the spectrum. I'm sure you're getting questions from people that are not, religious. So what do you tell them in terms of how to prepare them to make these kind of decisions, or help them to prepare their children to make those type of
Well,
decisions?
there are a couple of different aspects to this. Somebody says, well, gee, I can see from how that might be true from the point of view of your faith. But if I don't believe that, if I don't believe in God, for instance, if I don't believe in his grace, what does this say to me? Well, there's a couple of things that it really ought to say to them. One is maybe you should consider whether God does exist and whether his grace is real. Even the sociologists, even the secular sociologists are finding that faith-based marriages are much more healthy. Maybe you should think about that. I know of a case where the great psychologist Paul Vitz was speaking about his book, Faith of the Fatherless, about atheism among young men who grew up without their fathers or with a deficient relationship with the father. And a man in the audience got up and said in after the Q&A began, said, Dr. Vitz, I understand what you're talking about. He says, but you could be talking about me. I had a bad relationship with my father. I don't believe in God. And maybe your analysis helps to explain that. But now I'm a father. How would you advise me? And it might have been one of these come to Jesus moments. It wasn't. And a lot of people were angry at Vitz because he didn't do that. What he said, I think it was wonderful. He said, he thought for a moment and he said, well, I think I would advise you to just be the very best father that you possibly can. And the guy stood there for a moment, as though this had never occurred to him as the right response. And then he said, thank you. That was very helpful. And he sat down, and I wasn't present, but I'm told that the entire auditorium, burst out in cheerful applause. The Just as not lacking faith in God can make it difficult to be a father, difficult to have a good relationship with your father, so also trying to be a good father can bring you closer to God because you begin to understand God the Father. And I think that that works in both directions. But I tell people, can we be good without God? Can we really be good without God? It isn't just a matter of greater certainty or I have the religious sanction, oh, you'll go to hell if you don't do this or something like that. But I need help. And in the life of faith and the life of grace, you're experiencing that help every day. It doesn't mean you're not going to fall. It doesn't mean you're not going to sin, but you're experiencing that help every day. And it's very real. And I think that people should think about that.